This man is famously very humble and unassuming. That is, of course, until you put a football in his vicinity. He's one of the greatest goal scorers of Saints, and he's remained loyal to them for many, many years, so well done. He's also one of the few public figures that's had the balls to speak out. Richard Vobes, Matt Tissier.
Thank you. My wife didn't write that introduction for me, I know that much.
Did she not? Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another of my wonderful interviews live, which is fantastic. And thank you so much for coming along. The one and only Matt Tissier, famous golfer, who has agreed to talk to us today. Oh, hello. Got one of those microphones. Just before we start, I'd just like to say, yes, I woke up this morning, recorded a video so that I would have something whilst I was here, tried to upload it, and found another strike.
Oh.
It's not the same in football. When you get a strike, you know, that's quite handy, isn't it?
If you've got a good strike, yeah.
Yeah, if you get it right, it doesn't bounce on the crossbar.
Have you been a naughty boy again?
I have been, yeah. Did an interview yesterday and they didn't like it. Didn't even go live. That was the annoying thing. I just uploaded it and they said, sorry, can't have it. You've been struck off. But I have another channel and rumours will get round where that is and you'll be able to see all my nonsense. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about you, Matt. We we've met on a few occasions.
We have met on a few occasions.
Thank you very much. If you could do the interpretation, that would be absolutely brilliant. We were in Southampton live on stage. We were
in London.
In London, live on stage.
Yeah,
it was nice. And now here we are at this wonderful place. Is it Gaunt House? Yes. Yeah. And if I don't eat soon, I'll be feeling gaunt. Anyway, so Matt.
Yes.
Where shall we go with our conversation today?
Oh, where do you want to start? It's a mad world, isn't it?
It is a mad world. I know you've got your story of how you started to wake up. Shall we start a little bit there just to get us in the mood?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a little bit suspicious of people in authority from a very young age. So I know, yeah, and I think that's, when I've been looking back at the last 4 years, we're trying to work out what it is that kind of we've all got to be able to see through the bullshit. And I think a lot of it has been that willingness to question authority. You know, don't just take people's word for it just because they're wearing a white coat. That's definitely what I learned down the years. So, but obviously during my adult life, I was very busy trying to fulfil my dreams of becoming a professional footballer. Wanted to play for my country. And so I did that for 17 years. I retired from football at the age of 33. I went straight into the punditry side of things. And again, really enjoyed that. It was great fun. You know, I had a nice life. I wasn't working that often, but I was, you know, able to pay all the bills and play lots of golf, which is a nice work-life balance, which is something that's been really important to me down the years, which is one of the reasons why I never went into football management. You know, being a football manager is a proper, like 24 hours a day job.
Who wants that?
Yeah,
eh?
and I've never had a full-time job in my life, and I didn't intend to start then. So
no, don't blame you.
So I was doing my punditry stuff, and you know, life was going great. You know, I remarried 16 years ago. We've got a 15-year-old little girl, and then in early 2020, the whole world changed for me. I started to see things that I didn't like happening on the world stage. Norman Collier going on here. For those of you old enough to remember.
Just waking you up there with a little bit of bass noise.
Yes. So yeah, I started in February 2020. Started seeing this stuff on the news about this novel virus that was making people fall over in the streets in China. Incredibly falling over but managing to break their fall with their hands before they really hurt themselves. So I was like, well, that's bullshit for a start. And then the whole world went mad and started thinking that these videos were actually real. And so I was like, something's not right here. And obviously the football season got curtailed, so my job stopped. I mean, I did get paid still, but didn't have any work to do, so I had a lot of time on my hands. And that's where it all went wrong, really. I started looking for things.
Down the rabbit hole.
I went down a few rabbit holes.
Yeah.
I started, I think, with... I'd heard a lot of stories down the years, and whenever I'd seen him on the telly, I always felt like, your gut instinct. This is a big thing with, obviously, I do like to listen to my gut. And every time I saw Bill Gates on the telly, I thought, wrong 'un. There's something not right about that fella. And loads of people had said things to me about him, and I hadn't really bothered too much. And then I saw what was going on, and I was like, right, I've got a bit of time on my hands. Let's go and have a look. So I went into his website on his foundation, started having a look through all the people that he donates his money to, where his money was going.
He's very philanthropic,
Isn't he just? Very generous man. I mean, hundreds of millions of pounds, media organisations. Why would he want to do that? I mean, talk about being so blatant and obvious. Clearly buying publicity, decent publicity, and then all the institutions that were involved in the COVID nonsense, all of them he was donating large amounts of money to as well. So Johns Hopkins University, all the people involved in the statistics, and I was like, something's not right here. Something's not right. So I was like, okay. Then somebody mentioned to me about the UN Agenda 2030. So I went and have a look at that website, and that scared the shit out of me. When I saw the plans that they had for us drawn up over the next kind of decade or so, I was like, oh my God, how are there people in the world that want to have this much control over human beings? These are seriously evil psychopath people. And I was like, this is something seriously bad here. And then the clincher... I then came across a series called The Fall of the Cabal. Fucking hell. I mean, if you could have seen my face when I was watching that series, oh my God. I was like, all the things that I've kind of thought were a bit dodgy in the past. Like, I knew politicians were corrupt. Right? I knew there was corruption at the top end of governments. I knew that. But when I listened to that, I mean, I underestimated it quite grossly.
As we all do.
Oh,
as we all
my
did.
God. And that's the thing. If you tell a big enough lie, people will believe it because they go, oh, it's such a big lie, it must be true. And this is a big fucking whopper of a lie.
Yes,
The people at the top of this system are not very nice people, to put it bluntly. So be careful what I say, because I want to stay around on this planet for a little bit longer.
I don't think there's any snipers in the audience, I'm pretty sure. Although Amazon are selling lots of crossbows, apparently.
Yeah. So that was me then. I was like, oh my God, something's so bad. I've got to say something about this. I feel like I couldn't not say something. And so I started posting my sort of thoughts on social media, and that was interesting. I went from literally using my Twitter account for 11 years or something, basically just talking about sport for 11 years. And then I did a tweet in March of 2020 which completely changed my entire world. And I wrote, why are we making such a fuss about a virus that's only going to be potentially harmful to people who have already got comorbidities and are very old?
That's a fairly respectable question, isn't it?
Well, I thought it was a fairly respectable question, but I then suffered the first bot swarm of my entire life. Oh my God, the responses I got to that were incredible. But strangely enough, at the same time, that tweet actually got the most likes I'd ever had in 12 years on social media.
There's an irony.
Wasn't it? It wasn't it just, I was getting all these people liking it, but in the comments I was getting absolutely hammered by people, and so I thought, well, I must have hit a nerve there, and I'm one of those people who won't get bullied. I won't get shouted down. If I feel like something is right, I need to talk about it, and it doesn't matter how much abuse you give me, you're not going to make me go away. And luckily I've got a thick skin from, having 40,000 people every week singing rude songs about the size of your nose or the size of your ass. So I developed a pretty thick skin. That stood me in good stead for the last 4 years, if I'm honest. I mean, that was, that... So yeah, that was kind of where it all started. I then kind of had a bit of an issue with Sky when they asked us to wear the Black Lives Matter badges after the
Did
whole
you fancy
George
that?
Floyd incident. Not really, no. So the first time we went back to work, and the producer gave us these badges just before we got about to go on air, and he made us put all these badges on. I looked at him, I went, "Do we have to wear that?" And he went, "It's in your best interest if you do." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, we did the show, and I felt really uncomfortable all afternoon. I was like, and I kept looking at it. I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing wearing that? I don't agree with that shit. You know. So at the end of the show, I took the badge and I said to the guy who had given us the badges, I said, "I'm going to give you this back." I said, "I'm telling you now, I would never wear that badge again on the show. If you want me to wear the Kick Racism Out badge, because I'm not racist, I treat everybody equally, and I've always tried to do that in my life. So if you want me to wear a different badge, I'm going to, but don't make me wear that, because I know what that organisation stands for, and I'm not in agreement with that. So I will not be wearing that badge again." So I was the first person at Sky who refused to wear the Black Lives Matter badge.
Did any others? Did any others follow you?
Eventually, there was like a slow drip of people, and then eventually nobody was wearing it. So so I think there was some justification there.
But it just goes to show it does take somebody to stand.
It takes one person to stand up and give courage to the other people, and that's what I've tried to do over the last few years, because I think there's so many people who are in agreement with what I've been saying, and I've got lots of messages of support in private, through my mobile phone, through Twitter DMs, from people who are still in the public eye, who still have a job in the media, who agree with everything that I've said, but the last sentence is always, "But I've got a mortgage to pay, and I can't risk losing my house, and losing my job," and I think somebody at the back there said spineless, didn't they? Saved me saying it.
People are very comfortably off, aren't
but
they?
I do kind of get it a little bit. But I would say to those people now, if they ever get to see this, I will say to them, you can make another life. There is another life outside of that media. There's other jobs that you can do. You know, there's so many other things that are much more worthwhile in life that you can do. And if that means taking a drop in your living standards, so be it. I'm probably 50% down on what I was earning 4 years ago. You know, but you know what? I'm probably way happier than I was 4 years ago.
And there's somebody said over there, I just heard, you can sleep at night.
I can sleep at night, yes.
Although
my CBD gummies help me. So yeah, where were we? So that was the Black Lives Matter stuff, and then obviously I was then not particularly popular with the bosses at Sky, and
did you feel that you were unpopular with them? I mean, did you get that sense when they were talking?
Well,
to you?
I got called in. I didn't get called in. I got phoned by the head of football because one of my other posts that I put on Twitter got me in a lot of trouble. But when the football season was trying to start back up again, you won't know about this, Richard, because you know fuck all about football,
exactly.
Right? But in June 2020, the football season had been ceased, and they were trying to start it back up again without crowds in. So empty stadiums, but they were PCR testing everybody every
on
week.
The way in.
No, they were PCR testing everybody at every football club in the Premier League every week. And at the end of that, when they'd done it, they would announce through the media how many positive tests there'd been. Right now, nobody would know who those tests, what teams those tests had come from. Right, unless the teams themselves decided to admit it. Right, so the Premier League would say there's been 8 positive tests this week, and that would be that. And the next day, you'd get one or two of the clubs coming out and going, yes, 4 of those positive tests were ours. Now, I started noticing a bit of a trend in the clubs that were admitting to having positive COVID tests, and all of them were either in the relegation zone or just above the relegation zone, and who had a vested interest in the season being cancelled completely and starting from scratch the following season with the same league, because they make about another 100 million quid or whatever it was. So they had a vested interest. So the clubs at the bottom. So I put a tweet out.
Oh, here we go.
But it was just an observational tweet. I didn't think there was anything controversial about it. And I just put, isn't it strange that the only clubs that are admitting to having COVID cases are the ones that are just above the relegation zone or actually in the relegation zone, right? I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. The next day, I got a phone call from the head of football at Sky. All right, Gary. All right, Matt. He said, I need to have a word with you about your tweet yesterday. And I went, okay, which one? You can take your pick. He said, the one about, the relegated clubs. And I went, oh, right. He said, yeah. He said, we've had a complaint about you from one of the CEOs at one of the football clubs. And I said, oh, okay. I said, have you got the tweet in front of you? He said, yeah. I said, can you read it to me? So he read it to me. And I went, can you tell me what's factually incorrect about that tweet? And he had a little pause and he went, no. And I went, well, why are you phoning me then? I said, because I'm not taking it down. Factually correct. Nothing wrong with it. I ain't taking it down. So he was like, well, I'm going to have to give you a warning. So he gave me a warning.
Gave you a warning?
He gave me a warning. Yeah, a verbal warning. So that was my first strike, a bit like you on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then,
tough, isn't it, at the top?
And then I got a phone call. The season finished, so we ended up finishing the season. And then they were just about to start the next season, September, first weekend of September. I got a phone call the end of August, a text message from him going, can we have a Zoom call to discuss the upcoming season? So I said, all right, okay. Very unusual. This didn't really happen in the previous 15 years I was working with them. So Zoom invite comes about 10 minutes before I'm due to go on. And it's not just me and Gary. There's another name on there that I don't recognise. So I log on to the Zoom call. 2 people on there. Gary introduces me to this geezer who's HR. And I was like, right, okay. So bear in mind, I've worked for them for 15 years under contract. I did another 3 years before that as a freelancer. So 18 years of service. And the phone call went, Matt, I said, I wanted to let you know that we're taking the show in a different direction and there's no longer any work for you at Sky.
Is that what he said?
That was the conversation.
Bloody hell.
Nothing else. And so I kind of gathered my thoughts and I went, can I ask you a question? And he went, yeah. I said, does this have anything to do with what I've been posting on social media? And he went, well, we do have to take into account the reputation of our company. Right? And I went, oh, that's strange. I said, because you didn't seem too bothered about the reputation of your company when you re-employed Jamie Carragher after he spat a young girl out of his car. And he went, well, we can't talk about other people. And I went, well, that's fair enough. If that's what you think, Gary, that's fine. And then he went, and this is the other bit. Then he went, now, under the terms of your contract.
Here we go.
Here we go, right? So under the terms of your contract, he said, we're only liable to pay you 3 months' wages. Right? So I had 7 months left on my contract. So he said, we're only liable to pay you 3 months' wages. He said, but we know it's close to the start of the season. He said, so we're going to give you 6. I was like, I've got 7 months left. What are you doing? Yeah. Just give me if you're going to sack me, just pay me up. Exactly. I haven't done anything wrong. So he said, we're going to give you 6 months. I went, all right, okay then. He said, but you got to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Here we are.
To get your 6 months' money. So they sent through this non-disclosure agreement, and I read through it, and it said that I wasn't allowed to talk about how I'd got sacked, why I'd been sacked.
Good job you haven't mentioned it then.
I'm coming to that bit. So I get sent the NDA, and I phone my solicitor up and I show him the NDA, and there was a clause in it. That was the clause that said, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I wasn't allowed to criticise Sky. So I said to my solicitor, I said, I'm not going to sign that unless that clause gets taken out and is reinserted as Matt is allowed to tell the truth about what happened in the recording, in the Zoom call. Right, so I wasn't allowed to criticise them for 2 years. I had to sign for 2 years. I wasn't allowed to criticise them, but I said to them, I want that in there, and I'm not signing it unless that is in there. So that's why I was able to talk about it. But if ever you go back for those first 2 years, I talk about it and tell everyone, but I never slag off the company. 2 years later, I can't stop slagging them. Bunch of cunts.
Little bell went off in your diary.
Sorry, kids. Horrible company. Horrible company. So yeah, it all changed really when Comcast took over basically at Sky. It all went diversity, equity, inclusion, all that stuff, and they basically ruined the best football show that they had on the channel. More fool them, I say.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, that was my story of getting sacked.
But then,
And then the vaccines came. Then it was fun. Oh yeah. Of course, I'm now free from the shackles of. I mean, I did censor myself a little bit, not much, when I was actually under contract to Sky, because I was criticising Sky News quite a lot with their coverage and the fear mongering that was going on. Yeah, I just thought I was having a go at the BBC, and I thought I can't just have a go at them. They're all at it, so I'm having a go at all of them, and that included Sky News, who were obviously part of the organisation that were paying me. So it wasn't a great career move, if I'm honest, but it was the right thing to do, and that's way more important. So yeah, then I started getting onto the vaccine rollout, and there were so many red flags coming out with that kind of stuff. I couldn't shut up. I had to say something.
what was your? Hello, I'm a Dalek. What was your initial thoughts when it's? What was your initial thoughts
What were my initial thoughts?
when the vaccine rollout was beginning? Here we are. Musical microphones today. Hello.
So, firstly, it didn't take much knowledge to know that you can't develop a vaccine in the space of a year and know what its long-term side effects are. It's fucking impossible. It's not possible. So that was my point. I'd kind of obviously gone down a few rabbit holes and read about the whole depopulation ideas and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind, but I didn't really want to put that out there because, you
don't want anyone thinking you're a
just gotta
conspiracy theorist, do you?
little by little. And so I said I pretty much said I'm not going to take the vaccine because I don't know what the long-term side effects are. And also the next red flag was, and people look at me like I'm a nutter when I tell them this, right? But it happened. You might remember, just before the vaccine rollout, they changed the definition of the word vaccine to enable these gene therapies to be called vaccines. Now that for me was like, oh, fuck, they're changing the definition of words just to fit their agenda now. And so that was me. I wasn't taking it. My wife wasn't taking it. My daughter wasn't taking it. Not a chance.
So were you surprised that other people were?
I was a little bit surprised. Yeah, but I do think, and I think this is where you kind of got to have a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy with people, because the psychological operation that was waged on the British public was on a scale that we have never seen before in this country.
Well, you did have Tony Blair saying that you would be stupid if you didn't take it. So obviously we all got to listen to Tony Blair.
As Mark was saying before, you take what they say and turn it 180 degrees.
Absolutely.
And that certainly applies when Tony Blair opens his mouth, the war criminal.
Yeah. But people were taking the vaccine and they were lining up and they were. And if you didn't do it, you were.
I was a granny killer.
Absolutely a granny killer.
I was. I got called all sorts of stuff. But the great thing about being a granny killer is you're not really worried about myocarditis.
No, I guess that's very true.
I've never been so healthy in the last 4 years, I've got to be honest. Not taking that shit is the best thing I ever did.
As I'm sure many people here will confirm. So how were you treated? I mean, being in the public eye, being a fit footballer, thrown out of Sky, and now not taking the vaccine on social media, that must have been fun?
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah. I had people, my own people in my own industry, people who I thought were friends, having a pop at me on social media. But as I said before, I don't get bullied. And if I believe something's right, then I'll stick up for it. So it didn't really matter how many times Gary Lineker tweeted me.
I'm sure you wouldn't need a packet of Walker's crisps if he asked you.
Exactly. Now. I mean, I know that when I put my head on the pillow at night, I sleep very, very soundly. Yeah. I'm pretty certain Gary Lineker does not do that.
He's probably taking many other things to get him to sleep, I should think. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, so that was So I mean, he wasn't the only one. There was a few that had a go, and in fact, even recently, just a few weeks ago, my old teammate Alan Shearer blocked me on social media.
Oh,
I mean, that's bitchy. Seriously.
Yes.
I mean, I've only known him for 40 years, and just because I called him out because he was a He was one of the ones that went on the on social media telling everyone to get the vaccine, telling the kids to get the vaccine. And I called him out on it, and he didn't like it very much. So there's obviously a guilty conscience there.
So you continued to speak out, did you, when the vaccine came?
Oh, absolutely.
And
100%.
where were you doing that?
On social media, I then I was on Twitter originally, and then I joined Getter, which was a pretty similar site to Twitter, but a bit more right-sided, or centrist, as I like to call it. And so I then started interviewing some very interesting people on a podcast that I did every Monday night called The Flip Side, and I started learning so much from unbelievable people like Dr. Peter McCullough. I interviewed Robert Malone. I interviewed Thomas Binder. Majid Nawaz was unbelievable, and the cleverest bloke I've ever spoke to in my life, Ivor Cummins.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. That man is just unbelievable. Such a font of knowledge. He was incredible. And so, yeah, I interviewed lots of different people and was getting, I interviewed Andrew Bridgham when it kind of first came up that Andrew started speaking out. And, I just learnt so much from experts in their field. Mike Eden.
Yes.
Was another one that I interviewed, and, I've met Mike a few times now, and lovely bloke, a massive heart, wants to do the right thing, and a lovely, lovely man. So there are good people out there that I connected with, and that was a real source of comfort to me, that there were other people who thought like me, and not just thick old footballers who think they're clever, but people who were experts in their industry, talking about what was going on in the pharmaceutical industry and all that kind of stuff. And so I learned a lot from them. Met Dr. Tess Laurie, did an event in Guernsey with her. She was incredible. Another very empathetic human being, I found. So I just connected with all these people, and it's been amazing. And then get to meet people like you, Richard. And
I'm sorry about that bit. You keep getting lumbered with me interviewing live on the stage.
No, but it has been an eye-opening experience, and I think it's definitely made me a better. What I've gone through has made me a better person.
Have you found, as I have, having gone down this journey, that you're now meeting incredible people, but you can have conversations with them where you don't have to be guarded at all?
Absolutely.
And
we've got a whole tent full of them.
Well, exactly.
Amazing people.
But once you know somebody's on your side or in your camp, you can talk about anything, and even if they disagree,
you can have an amicable conversation about it. I think that's been one of the most insidious things about the last 4 years, is if you take a position, nobody wants to debate with you about it, they just want to attack you. Instead of being, courteous to each other, listening to each other's opinions, disagreeing with each other, and not being able to fall out over it. And I think we've just lost that skill. I don't know what they put in them jabs, but these people don't. So they seem to have lost all sense of reasoning and debate and empathy a lot of the time. But I have had, I must say, 3 of the guys that I play golf with at my golf club on a regular basis, they all thought I was mental in May 2020. They thought I'd gone mad. I'm sure we've all had that experience. Really close friends of mine for quite a lot of years, and they were worried about me. And then about 18 months later, I still carried on playing golf with them, and I kind of tempered my conversations a little bit with them. But one of them was an ex-policeman, and we used to have some right ding-dongs, because he was quite straightforward in his thinking as well. He was very forthright, but he's an ex-policeman, very MK Ultra'd, right? He's like, institution is everything. And so we had these arguments in the golf club after we'd played golf. But the great thing was, we would have some quite heated debates, but at the end of it, we'd go, "Oh well, I'll see you tomorrow." And we go and play golf again the next day, and that's how it should be. You should be able to have
absolutely
some good debate with people and not fall out about it.
Yeah,
I really think it's a skill that's been lost, and critical thinking is another skill that's disappeared from the planet over the last 4 years.
But the thing is, but let me put this question to you. You mentioned the depopulation agenda, and we all know what that's about. And I started to think, hang on a minute, if they're trying to depopulate the planet and people have lined up, they've taken something which might be snake venom, it might be a gene bomb, it might be activated when they turn on the 5G. All those people will be eradicated, let's say. The people who are left are the critical thinkers, the people who've got common sense, the last people that these dark forces really want around.
So are you suggesting that actually it's quite a good idea that we get rid of them thick ones? You seem to be advocating getting rid of the thickos.
Let me take my mask off. Hello, welcome to Davos. He's just stepped down, hasn't he?
Hello, Klaus.
They put him in a little sort of youth regenerator, and I'm here. I'm just waiting for my cat. That would be quite useful. But it is an interesting proposition. I just think that actually, if all
did they think that there would be any people that wouldn't have fallen for the mind programming?
I don't know. They must have known that there are. I mean, they've been so clever on so many different fronts. They must have realised. I mean, maybe there is a FEMA camp with our name on it, of course.
You never know.
Or that we will just be zapped by the 5G.
We might just be arrested by all the fighting age men coming into the country.
Well, there is that. We have an election. We have an election coming up.
Do we? I haven't taken any fucking notice.
Well,
I couldn't give less of a shit about the election.
Oh, well, that's 10 minutes of my conversation out the window then. Well, you and me both. I mean, my problem is that running the YouTube channel, you're trying to sort of keep people up to date. I don't actually have a television. I've not had a television for about 10 years.
Well done.
So I don't watch anything.
That's impressive.
Thank you very much, the man clapping at the back there. And so when then people say, oh, what did you make of Farage, doing this? And I think, well, to be honest, I haven't seen anything. So I'm, like you, I'm fairly ignorant to what's actually going on. But we know we've got the two parties, which are basically the same thing.
Two cheeks of the same arse, yep.
Absolutely. And I have a theory.
You have a theory?
Yeah. So
what a reform? Are they the bit in the middle?
Well, I have a... They might be. It's funny you should say that. Yeah, because I haven't really paid much attention. If Reform still had Richard Tice at the helm...
He's not.
No, if.
Oh, if. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, the microphone didn't break down then. If Richard Tice was still at the helm and you really only had the choice between Conservative and the other mob, Labour, do you think that there would be great apathy to go to the polls?
Yes, I think there would be massive apathy. I think you'd probably get a turnout of less than 30% in this country.
So has Nigel Farage stepping in as the white knight for reform been placed there to actually get more people to go to the polls because he is offering hopium?
And when the populace need a hero, we shall provide them with one.
It would be interesting to know how many people here are intending to vote reform. So there is a fair sense that better somebody.
I mean, if you're going to, I mean, you can't. I mean, it's the best of a very bad bunch, if you ask me. Because I mean, if I see the polls, and I think, who the fuck thinks that Keir Starmer is going to do a good job running this country?
Yes, sir,
I don't
Keir
give a
Starmer,
fuck whether
please.
he's a sir or not. He's not getting called sir by me. He can shove it up his arse as far as I'm concerned. He was the one that let Jimmy Savile off. Don't ever let him forget that.
Exactly. See, the other problem I see is there's now I'm going to get slated here, but
By who?
probably
By me?
Yeah, by you, because I see kind of a bit of a parallel between footballers
Ooh.
and politics. Only in as much as it does seem that both of them seem to be a millionaire's game.
Yes, that's very true.
And
It's obviously changed since I played, because I'm not one of them.
Absolutely. The day they lost you, then the day they lost a proper, real, genuine person, of course. But it does seem that even with Farage's mob moving in, they're still millionaires offering us everyday people a solution. And although there are independents out there, what chance really have they got?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, I actually think the political system needs a complete overhaul. And I think, actually, if you get a low enough turnout, you could almost make a case for it to be redesigned, the system the way it is, because it's fucked at the moment. You know, it's so loaded in favour of the two main parties that I think there needs to be way more independence. I'd scrap the parties completely and just have independent MPs that run this country who give a shit about people like us. I think that'd be a much better system. Scrap the parties altogether.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And the Lords.
And absolutely the Lords.
What a waste of our money that is.
So it's very interesting because now you're sort of talking, and this is where hopefully that business about, you can have a conversation about anything and everybody's open-minded, and I'm hoping that there are people out there not going, twats. That at least they're listening, and that's, this is the sort of thing that we've got to get back, people to be able to have disagreements and genuine arguments, whether you agree or not, and still be friends, because we know which side we're all on, ultimately.
There is I've said this for the last few years now, and I became a Christian last year, and I've always said that I did. And we became, I believe we're in a fight of good against evil. We are definitely in that, and I wanted to be on the right side, and I think I've chosen the right path.
Well, you've definitely chosen the right path, but I'm really interested now. So what made you become a Christian?
So I've always kind of been a little bit ambivalent about everything. I've not been a skeptic. I've just kind of got on with my life, and not that side of things hadn't really come into it. And then everything that's kind of gone on the last 3 or 4 years has kind of focused my mind a little bit more. And then I went last October, I think it was. One of my old managers at Southampton lost his wife, unfortunately. She passed away, and I went to the funeral at Tissier Baptist Church. And I kind of walked into the church, and I just immediately I felt this sense of calm and a sense of belonging. And there was so many lovely people in there, and I just felt, blimey, this is nice. I like this, and I explored it. I started reading a bit more. I had private chats with the pastor at Tissier Baptist Church, who's a big Saints fan. He just wanted to talk about Saints. I wanted to talk about Jesus. But there you go. So that was fun. So yeah, I did that, and I became a Christian in December last year.
So what do you actually have to do then to become a Christian? You just sort of accept it as a way of life.
You accept that Jesus is the Lord, and that He did come and gave His own life for our sins, and it's just kind of trying to be a better person. I've tried to be a much more empathetic person. I did have a little bit of a temper when I was playing football, and occasionally it kind of rears its ugly head sometimes, but I've tried to eradicate that kind of stuff.
Would that be seen on the pitch?
Oh yeah, I had 47.
Do people remember? I can't imagine.
I had 47 yellow cards in my career, right? I tell you that about 45 of them were for screaming abuse at the referee. Because I used to, and what it was, it was the injustice. I didn't take injustice very well. And I think that's another common thread that everybody in this field has got. We don't do injustice. And if I felt like the referee had given a decision and it was wrong, I couldn't just accept it easily. I had to tell him that he was wrong. And sometimes in the heat of the game, adrenaline is flowing. Yeah. The swear words come out sometimes, and you end up getting a yellow card. I never got sent off for dissent, but I got a lot of yellow cards. And I never forget, actually, when I was a kid. This is the whole questioning authority thing again. I remember I was only about 11 or 12 years of age, and I was playing in a school football match, and it was at a different school. So the other school's head teacher was the referee. right? And he was cheating, right, towards his team because like we were the better team. He was giving them all the decisions, and I was giving him a bit of stick, right? I was only like 11 or 12, but I just couldn't take that sense of injustice. I had to say something, and then and then at the end, the referee went to my sports teacher at the end, and I could hear him. He was telling him about me, like, and saying how lippy I was and giving it all that, right? But I could hear him, and I'm walking with my mate, and my mate is obviously can hear it as well. And he looked at me, and I just looked at my mate, and I went, "He's talking out of his arse," right? And I said it a little bit too loud.
Uh-oh.
And he heard it. so my sports teacher frog marched me back to the car. He drove me back to my house, took me to my mum, and sat me down in front of my mum, told him what I'd done. Right? My mum sat there, listened very politely. And then when the teacher went, she went, "Was the teacher cheating?" And I went, "Yeah, he was, Mum." She went, "Fair play to you."
Oh, fantastic.
I love my mum and dad. They're great. My mum turns 80 next week. Honestly, I've been so blessed in my life. I've got the most amazing family. I've got 3 big brothers. I've got an amazing mum and dad. They all live back in Guernsey, which is somewhere I kind of started to contemplate moving back there, just to be with my mum and dad for a little bit longer in their later years. And next week, next Friday, me, my 3 brothers, our partners, and my mum and dad are flying off to Tenerife for a week, and my mum turns 80 while we're out in Tenerife, so it'll be amazing.
Fantastic. Isn't that good? And they resisted the jab?
Nope. They thought I was mad.
They thought...
Originally, they thought I was mad. I've managed to stop them now. Took a bit of time, took a bit of work. Thankfully, none of them have had any problems as of yet. My 3 brothers, I think, took 1, and then they realised I wasn't mental. And so, hopefully, not too much damage has been done.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of hope, isn't there, that there was not the nasty one, or it was.
I don't think they were all the same.
No,
Let's put it that way.
although apparently, not to put a kibosh on anything, but this is the sort of beginning when they say they're going to start to have effects, and we're going to see more people dropping.
Thanks for that uplifting message, Richard.
Yeah, no,
Thanks
that's
for
all right. I'd like to just share the news as it comes, as it comes straight into me live. One of the problems that we have, it seems at the moment, is we've gone through a little bit of a phony war situation where we've all been expecting something to happen on a massive scale, and we keep being told, oh, it's going to be bird flu, or it's Marburg, whatever it's called, or it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And there seems to be a lot of apathy. Obviously not here, but lots of people turned up to this wonderful, beautiful festival, of course, to hear people like Mark Devlin there and allegedly Dave and many of the others who were talking. But there does seem to be, I hear, a lot of apathy. The Stand in the Park groups are not meeting quite as much, or some of them are packed up now. And what we need more than anything else is unity. Are you finding problems like this where you go and talk to people?
I think what happens is quite a lot of the time the opposition are quite clever, and they will infiltrate and create problems and create divisions amongst the community. I've seen it happen, and I think the more kind of aware you are of all the problems, the easier it is to spot those who are doing it. And so I've got to a point where I just cut those people out of my life. Don't have anything to do with them. And I think also, yes, unity is great, but also you've got to remember just how much power every individual has. And you as an individual have the greatest power. And there's one word that you can use that gives you the greatest power, and that word is no. When they try and inflict something on you, just say no, and do not comply. And you can just say no. And if we all do that individually, we don't have to be a mass collection of people. If everyone does that individually, it's one little thing. But if billions of people do it all at the same time, it is massive. And I'm a firm believer that they use the negative energy that they force upon us with all the fear-mongering that they have in the media. And one of the best things you can do, and it's one of the most used phrases in the Bible actually, is do not be afraid. It's one of the most repeated verses in the Bible, sentences in the Bible. Do not be afraid.
You mentioned earlier about you were trusting your gut,
Mm-hmm.
and I think collectively, we're looking over here at a wonderful mass of people who obviously have that same instinct, and I think over the last 4 years we're beginning to really get in tune with our gut. We know when things are wrong.
Yeah.
How do we get that message out to perhaps those that would never have heard of the beautiful festival? Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a question that was I was asking myself very early on in 2020 when I could see what was going on. But when I was trying to tell people, they couldn't process that, and their emotions were overriding facts. And so I had to change the way that I spoke to people in the end, because it just wasn't getting through to people. And so I found the most effective way to actually do that was to not give people facts, but to ask them questions. So whenever something stupid would happen, ask them a question. Ask them why. Why is that? So when they did the restaurant thing, and you had to walk into a restaurant with your mask on, then sit down at the table and you could take it off. But then when you went to the toilet, you had to put it back on again. Right. So I just said to them, talk me through the science behind that rule there. What do you think? Why are they doing that? Like, does the virus not exist like below 4 feet? Does it exist at all? Who knows? But I found asking them questions was a much better way, and I would just leave them. So leave the question there, let it hang, and if they want to go and actually think about it a bit later on, much more effective way of doing things than trying to shove your opinion down someone's throat.
I certainly found myself that if you try to tell, with my son, my 33-year-old intelligent son who went to university.
There's
and
that
all of
number again. Watch him.
He might actually be 34 now, because he will be in a month's time. He was born the day after me, which is quite strange for a son, isn't it? Like, I was really early. No, 34 years later. Anyway, in trying to, when I was going down the rabbit hole, in trying to converse with him and say, my God, look at this is outrageous, I can't believe it. I made the mistake of throwing everything at him.
Yeah.
And you go, well, yeah, okay. If you don't believe in that,
can't take all that on board at one time.
They can't process it. So now, of course, it's a different game. It's. I think that the people out there, the non-playing characters, as I call them, are. You don't need to tell them that there's a gender 21 or gender 30. You don't need to tell them the depth of what's going on. But as you say, just dropping a seed, like when you look up and you see a stripy sky and you think, blimey, I don't remember that. Do you remember having stripy skies?
Exactly.
And trying to get them to sort of just see stuff and then let them do the questioning.
Why do we have a whole month of who else gets a whole month of celebrating Pride? Who gets a whole month? And not only the whole month, but you get it shoved down your throat every single day of the frickin' year. And then they have a whole month where they stick the flags up everywhere. I mean, I was in Dublin last night. I flew back this morning. You should see Dublin Airport. I don't know if anyone's been to Dublin Airport. Every door in Dublin Airport's got one of them stickers on. My God, you would think that 99% of Dublin were gay. It's incredible. It really is. And I would just say that once upon a time, pride was considered a sin. And just remember, pride always comes before a fall.
When will the fall come?
I think it's happening. I've seen a massive change in people's attitudes in my circles, in the normies, who, again, they all thought I was mad, like 2 years ago. But now, honestly, there's probably... The policeman is the only one that's probably left that I haven't got through to at this point. But I'm working on him still, and I'm sure we'll get there in the end. But yeah, I believe there's a massive awakening going on with the people of the planet. And I've always believed that there are way more good people on this planet than there are bad. And at the end of the day, because of sheer numbers, we will win. We will win.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right there, and I endorse that we will win. We will win, and
there'll be a few more battles along the way, but we're going to win.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not going anywhere.
Good man.
I'm not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
You won't shut me up.
And you proved that. You proved that so far. So, what do you think? Wrapping this up, I don't know how long we've got left, but solution-wise for people, it's always good to give people something to go away with, something to take home. What sort of things are you looking at?
Solutions for me is to have as little reliance on the government in your life as you possibly can. The least amount of reliance you need on people in positions of authority, the better. That's what I would say. So
we've given away so much responsibility.
We have
to all these quangos.
Yeah,
these
we need
councils.
to take back our power. Is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that goes along with what I was saying before about saying no when people try and introduce stupid laws. And understand that you have that power to say no, and that it's not just you that's doing it. You will encourage other people to do it. Like you said before, there's got to be somebody is the first person to start the wave, and people will follow. And I think we're seeing that.
We definitely are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we've run out of time. I'm just looking over to Toby, who's emceeing it.
Ian's give you the thumbs up.
Three more
another
hours.
3 hours.
There we are. Okay.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
We'll start a little bit of mind control and indoctrination now with a bit of hypnosis. Why not? We're only in June. We've got another 6 months before the end of the year. Are you doing anything special this year? Are you flying around, going places? Will you get back on an aeroplane with vaccinated pilots?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, I have. I was on one this morning. I was on a flight from Dublin back at 7:20 this morning, so I'm just starting to
is that why you were snoozing over there?
Yeah, I was having a little lay down over
Mark
there.
Was
I might have had a couple of Malibus last night in the gig I did in Dublin, so it was kind of similar kind of people that I was talking to. So we ended up having a couple of drinks afterwards. I ended up getting about 3 hours sleep.
Oh, bless you.
So I just had a little cat nap. I was listening to Mark though. I didn't actually fall asleep. I was just resting my eyelids. That's what my dad said.
Mark's talk was really interesting about all these pop stars and stuff.
Mark's amazing. The research he does is incredible. I would love.
I'm curious. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
I'm curious to what kind of music that you listen to and whether you have been indoctrinated by some of these pop stars.
Well, I can only say I was really pleased he didn't mention Shakin' Stevens, if I'm honest.
Is he all right, Mark? He's in the next door.
Damn. He was the first single I ever bought was This Old House.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I'm not taking the piss. He was actually my first musical hero. I loved Shakin' Stevens. I thought it was brilliant. It was quite sad actually. I actually had posters of him up on my wall and all sorts. I wasn't even gay. Right? I just loved his music. I felt uplift when I listened to his music. I felt good. It made me feel good. It made me feel nice, and I really loved that. And funny enough, have we got time for this story? We got a few minutes.
Yeah, we got a few minutes.
Right. So this is true. Must have been about 7 or 8 years ago now. I was on Soccer Saturday. That's a program. That's a TV program I was on, Richard.
What, about
football program.
Oh, I have no idea.
So I was on the show one Saturday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And part of the show, they would do interviews with like footballers and stuff, and they'd pre-record it, and then they'd show it. And then they'd have a bit of music in the background.
And people watched?
Yeah.
Amazing.
We had a lot of people watching. And not so many now, because it's shit. So anyway, one of the background music to one of the interviews was some band from the 80s, right? And when we came back to the studio, Jeff Stelling went to me, "Oh, Matt, did you like," I think it was Kajagoogoo or something like that. "Did you like Kajagoogoo?" And I went, "They were all right," I said, "but there were no Shakin' Stevens," like that. So that was on the Saturday, no word of a lie. On the Monday morning, Shakin' Stevens' agent had contacted my agent, right? And my agent rang me Monday and went, "I've had Shaky's people on. They saw the show on Saturday." She said, and Shaky, I don't know if you know it, Shaky had a massive heart attack a few years ago, like 10, 12 years ago. And he very nearly died. And the hospital managed to save his life. And so he was having a golf day to raise money for the unit in the hospital that saved his life, right? So, and they said to me, "Would you come and play in Shaky's golf day?"
Oh, wow.
So I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem, that's fine." So it was a couple of weeks later, so I rock up. Now at this point, I'm not bad at golf, right? I'm all right, I can play. And what I didn't realise is I was actually, not only was I playing in the golf day, I was in Shaky's team. right?
Right.
So I'm in Shaky Stevens' team at this golf day. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky. This game of golf was the first time Shaky had ever picked up a golf club in his life. He didn't have a fucking clue, right? He had no idea what he was doing. And I literally spent 4 hours walking around the golf course giving Shaky Stevens a lesson at golf. How about that?
Wow.
If somebody had told me that at 11 years of age, I'd have gone, you're mental. Isn't it amazing how the universe works sometimes?
It
Brilliant.
surely is.
Yeah.
Wow, how about that? And what about favourite film? Because we know that they put in all the sort of Luciferian stuff telling us what they're going to do. What films were...
Again, Mark never mentioned my favourite film, which was in 1978, I think it came out. Anyone of my age will probably know. What did you say, young lady? You did. You got it exactly right. Grease was my favourite film growing up. Yeah. I could have recited the entire script at one point in my life. I watched it that many times.
So
Olivia Newton-John was pretty hot, to be fair.
So I'm looking over at Mark there. John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John.
Wrong uns, aren't they? They're wrong uns.
Are they wrong uns?
Pretty cool film, though, wasn't it? But they're wrong uns,
Pretty cool film,
yeah. That's fine. I'm cool with that now. You know what I mean?
You got over it.
I'm past that stage of. No, I won't say that.
I thought for a minute you were going to give me a burst of song.
Oh no, I've got a lot of talents in my life. Most of them are sporting, but the one talent I don't have is a voice to sing songs, which is really, really frustrating because I know the words to fucking hundreds of songs. Right, I love it. I'm in the car on my own. I'm off. Right, I'm go do my after dinner speaking. I'm like 4 hours up to a job and 4 hours back. I'm singing to myself the whole time. Tone deaf, absolutely tone deaf. And it's horrible because I'd love to be able to go and sing karaoke because I know all the words. I love country music. I do like a bit of country.
Oh, the lovely Julia.
Is that the devil's music, Mark? Country music? Is that the devil's music or is that good? They sing about... Especially for Christians. Cheers. Just going to cancel that trip to Nashville next month. Fuck.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, I think we're coming to an end now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to interview the one and only Matt Tissier, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for turning out, everyone.
Keep doing what you're doing.
You too, Richard. Well done, mate.
And we'll see you again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.